Hey, I want to talk about LLM search and SEO today, but what I really want to talk about is content systems. And you will hear me talk a lot about content systems and what they are and why we would want them. So, and happy Thanksgiving, by the way, for other folks in the US. Happy Thanksgiving next week, because you won't see me next week unless I do like a Black Friday thing, which I probably won't do. But anyway, so content systems. First, let me start with a definition of what a content system actually is. And a content system takes all of the things that you know or that your people know and converts it efficiently and measurably into structured information that shows your buyers what they need to learn. So let's throw this up on the screen. A content system takes the things that your people know and converts them into structured information so that your buyers can learn what they need to know. Let's see what happens when we do this, by the way. I'm experimenting a little bit today. Okay. So that's what a content system is really about. And I love Lee Densmer's, by the way, definition of this, which I took some inspiration from. Content system can include a lot of pieces. There's the people involved in the system, right? There's, hey, we have a content marketing manager, we have an engineer, we have a CMO, we have salespeople, we have solutions. All these people are involved in some way. Hopefully the CEO is involved in some way in your content system, right? And then there's all of the processes that you have. And then there's all the technology that you use, which, up until a few years ago was maybe Google Docs and Google Analytics and some of those things. And now it's LLMs and lots of other things. It might be Reddit monitoring or all kinds of other stuff. So that's all the components of a content system. And what we want to do is design and then implement and operationalize an effective content system, a combination of all of these things that at the highest possible velocity and performance takes the things that your people know and converts them into structured information so that your buyers can learn what they need to know. And there's a lot of things implied there about distribution and formats and all those things, which is what that structured word means. It's a very sort of complex word to use in this case. So we talk about content systems. What I want to talk about today is how can your content system lead to outcomes in LLM search and SEO? And what we need to know, and I'm going to put a little banner up for this, how can your content system lead to outcomes in, let's do AEO. Let's call it AEO today. Who knows what it's going to end up being. So if I think about outcomes for that, what are the outcomes we want for that? Well, there's probably ranking. There's visibility in LLMs. There's a lot of brand related outcomes. There's also conversions, clicks, all those things that, people have been on your site. And ultimately, the reason we're doing any of this and the reason we want to reach buyers specifically is that we want it to convert into pipeline. And maybe we don't have control over whether the thing closes in the end, but we want to convert it into pipeline. So that's what I want to talk about today is what are the components that you might have in a content system in order to get you outcomes in AEO and SEO. And I'm going to throw up on the screen here what we use when we think about topic strategy. So yeah, let's do this. I think this is okay. Let me share my screen. So we'll do this. We will share screen. And then we'll look at this together. So this is how, you can't see it yet, but you will in a second. This is how we think about it. And we have topics, and we show visibility, and we show rank. And when I talk to clients about the core loop, which is what we call it, around AEO and SEO and all that stuff, this is kind of what we're talking about, which is we picked a bunch of topics and then we're tracking LLM visibility for each and we're tracking rank for each, and that's visibility. And then there's separate analysis. It's like, is it converting? Is it pipeline? Is it, well, all the other stuff that we care about. But this is something to start with. And when I talk about content systems and I try to answer the question, how can your content system lead to outcomes in AEO or SEO? This is an important part of it, which is there's people, there's process, there's technology. This is an important part of the process, is a structured framework for deciding on a limited number of topics that you can actually pursue. So this is an example of how a content system can really help you, is when you take a systematic approach to specific things that you might care about and making actual decisions about topics that you care about and making sure those topics are connected to what your buyers care about. This is really important. And then what you also have here is a little mini dashboard that gives you that feedback loop. So how can your content system lead to outcomes in AEO? This is in AEO and SEO. This is a really important part of that. So that's one. Another thing that I want to talk about that can be a really good component of a content system for outcomes in AEO, SEO is the research side. And we have our own frameworks for researching stuff. We have the Airql app. Let me share this tab instead. And I can go in here and I can go to our topic explorer and I can say, oh, show me all the topics around content strategy and how do we rank and all those things. So this can be a very useful, helpful reporting tool. And you can see that I've got in here a bunch of keywords and a bunch of URLs and things that we rank for and don't rank for. Like, for example, we don't rank for content strategy at all. We'll probably fix that one day. Okay, so that's one part. But another part of your reporting framework for this stuff could be a tool like Profound or Scrunch or something like that that gives you the information. You can also use a spreadsheet like the one we have, which just runs on code. So that's an important part too, is setting the reporting up in the right way to get to those outcomes, to measure those outcomes. So that's part of the content system. But another thing here to show you is if I go back to my topic strategy sheet, we've built workflows that go out and get the topics and the questions that people have about them, that go out and just like say, okay, here's a Reddit thread, here's a Gartner Peer Insights review, here's a Google people also ask, like whatever it is. And this is a long spreadsheet. It gets all those things. Now you can go out and also just build your own. You don't have to build a complicated workflow or a simple workflow like we've got here. This is the workflow that we use for this. It's from a tool called N8N. But this workflows part is important. And so when we talk about the channel, I talked about reporting and measurement and strategy. And now let's talk about the channel. One of the things that we know about AEO and SEO is that we want to answer people's questions and we want to look for things that people are really searching for. And there's lots of technical stuff and other things, but having an analysis like this that really shows you what those questions are so you can match a query intent is important. So that's another way that a content system can lead to outcomes, is when we understand and think about the characteristics of the channel, the AEO and SEO channels, and it's two very different things, but we know that they care about things like recency and real questions and high quality answers and all those things. So you can kind of tailor this part to getting outcomes there. And, you know, we're very used to getting excellent outcomes on those channels because we're able to connect the real data. And then there's a taste component of it. There's a high quality information component. There's all of those things as well. And so that brings me to possibly another component of how a content system can lead to outcomes in AEO and SEO, which is programmatic campaigns and LLM assists. So let me show you, know, people are talking about kind of content engineering. And a big part of content engineering is understanding what the content is, understanding the topics, the RPOV, all of those things. Part of that too is having PMM involved. And I'm actually gonna, this is so important, I'm gonna change the banner here. If product marketing doesn't have an active role in your content system, it will fail. Let's add that banner there. That's a really important note to make. But you know, all the people, all those things are part of this system. And even on the AEO, SEO part, like that's really important. You need to understand what you want to write about. But anyway, So this is another thing that you can add to your content system I'm going to share is, of course, if you're watching this, you're using Claude, you're using ChatGPT, whatever, to help your writing in some way, most likely. But this is part of the system. And what we use is actually a pretty complex. I shouldn't say these things. I shouldn't say, oh, it's pretty complex, because I don't know. It's actually maybe not that complex. But the point I'm trying to get at is we've spent a lot of time thinking about these things, and so that you shouldn't have to. Where is my? There we go. LLM assist stuff. And we have process that runs in the background for picking up interesting titles, interesting queries. And there's a lot more that goes on beyond just this spreadsheet to quickly write opportunistic content around things that are interesting for our readers to learn, for things that the buyers need to learn. So this is another piece of your content system, can be. And the reason this is important is if we go back to the characteristics of the channel, the things that you need to succeed, we know that recency is important. We know that coverage is important. We know that having our own perspective is important, and information gain is important, and lots of other things too. And so that is all stuff that AI can help you with, provided you use it in the right way, that actually helps you produce stuff that's pretty high quality. So that's another piece here. When I think about setting up your content system and all this stuff, that's another piece. So we talked about setting up the framework. We talked about doing the measurement, and I'll just share that again, just so we can look at that together. Whoops. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Where's my strategy tab? There we go. We talked about setting up the framework, picking topics, having that conversation, having a sheet like this or something with a finite set of topics on it, a finite number of goals that we're trying to achieve, and then measuring your visibility for AEO and your rank, clicks, conversions, of course, but rank is kind of a quick thing that we can look at. We talked about the reporting part. We talked about the measurement part. We talked about the addition of an FAQ finder or something like that to get the real questions that people are actually also asking, that we care about and want to answer. And I'll share that one again just so we can see it. We talked about LLMs and how you can use them in your workflows. And I just gave you a little taste of that to say, hey, here's a title we're interested in. Let's get some assistance to write this so that we can get it up faster and see what happens. We didn't talk very much about programmatic, but you could imagine then extending that to create more content, provided it's tasteful and reasonably high quality, which you can totally do. And so coming back to setting up your content system for LLM search and SEO, those are the main points. Is if you build your content system and come up with a reasonable number of topics and track the data for each one of those topics, and then go out and find the questions that people are asking for those topics and move at a high velocity using LLMs to actually publish things, because that is what that channel expects. That is the way that channel is structured. Those are all things that will help. I didn't talk a lot about FAQs. Those are important for LLM search, and those can go into your strategy here. They can come right out of an FAQ finder, for example, or even a keyword finder, but that's important. I didn't talk a lot about schema markup and all that other stuff, but that's all really important. But this is a thing that a content system can do. So in the future, we'll talk about other ways that a content system can help you. How can a content system help you drive pipeline? How can a content system help you close more deals? How can a content system help you get more visibility on social? All these other things. But those are the pieces that you need for LLM search and SEO. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching this live or checking it out later. Hopefully some of these artifacts were helpful to you, and I'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks.